welcome.
Thank
Introduce
you.
yourself.
Yeah, I'm Phil Olson, and I live local, and I've been a guitar teacher for almost 25 years. Um, Quite a background history before that too, but
Well,
yeah.
then how'd you get started into playing the guitar and
Oh,
teaching?
yeah. Okay, so I I wanted to play the guitar ever since I was a little kid. Okay, but both of my sisters took piano lessons, and so I would go with my mom. And I'd have to sit in this parlor for an hour while both of my sisters did lessons. I'm the youngest in the family. And I got to be about 10, 11. My mom said, "Philip, wouldn't you like to take piano lessons?" I said, "No, mom, I don't want to take piano lessons. I want to play guitar." My mom, "Well, we don't have a guitar." Okay. So about 4 years go by, and my family used to vacation down near South Padre. And this was back in the day where it still was safe to go into Mexico,
Yeah.
so we would go into Matamoros. Well, my mom and dad bought these 2 cheap Mexican guitars. My sister started dating this guy who played guitar, so he tuned it up, gave me a couple of lessons on some chords and stuff, and I started playing, and I couldn't put the thing down. And my dad had a large road construction company. He came home for lunch one day, and he says to my mom, "Nadine, where's Philip?" "He's in the den practicing." "Oh." "Roger, he's been in there for 4 hours." "Oh, maybe he's serious. Maybe we should give him some lessons." And I was like, "Yes!" So I started
It worked.
taking lessons, and I took about 6 months of lessons, and I I'm not trying to be braggadocious, but the guy who ran the place was, he was a nice guy, but he just kinda did some chords and country stuff, and I was getting better than him, so I just left, and by the time I was a senior in high school, I was teaching at the other music store in town. I grew up near Albert Lee, Minnesota.
Okay.
And then I went to college, and I got in a band. We toured all over the Midwest. It was a pop rock band, which very quickly turned into a heavy metal band. And so we toured all over the Midwest for about 3 years, every weekend and then full-time during the summer. Then I went out to LA, and I got a recording engineering degree when I went out there for 1 year, which was in '89. Came back, had a 13-year career in corporate America. Um, wasn't the greatest fit for me. So so what ended up happening though is, I started, teaching on the side, and I prayed quite a bit about it, and I got a very clear message I was supposed to do it, and, I started teaching part-time. Within 2 months, I had enough students to leave my job,
Nice.
and I walked into the music conservatory where I was teaching. I was also teaching at my own studio, but I was part-time at this other place. And the fellow's name is Scott. I said, "Scott, I quit my job." And he freaked. 2 months, right? He said, "Phil, it takes 2 years at least to build a studio." I said, "No, it doesn't. I'm stepping out on faith." I know he's got me. So another 2 months go by, and I went to him and I said, "Scott, I'm really busy. Can you find another guitar teacher?" Because he knew I was just helping out. He goes, "Well, sure. Can you help me out a little longer?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, where are you at for students?" I was at 50 students in 4 months. And
So what set like, how did that happen? Like, what set you aside that all of a sudden you had all these when, someone who's been doing it is saying, "Oh, it takes 2 years," and you're doing it in a couple months.
there's no other answer to this other than I think God helped me out because I'm nothing special. It just it just happened.
Yeah.
Um, and Scott asked me if I could help out for a couple more months, and I said, "Sure." And at the end of that, right, so it's been 6 months, he had a student that wanted to come to my studio, and he had a past teacher that stole all of these guitar students from him, ripped them off. And when I was interviewing with him, we kinda hit it off because he went to St. Olaf, I went to Gustavus. And he said, "Phil, I want them to go to your studio." "But Scott," he goes, "No, you've been honest, you've helped me out so much. By the way, where are you at with your students?" I was over 70 students in 6 months.
That's
And
incredible.
I think, yeah, I think, Oh, what was that old game with the guitar, Guitar Hero?
Yeah.
I think that had something to do with it. I'd have some kids come in, and one kid came in his friend, and the one kid was getting it. The other kid, out of desperation after the fourth lesson, just looked at me. This is so much harder than Guitar Hero. I'm like, it's an actual guitar. You got to work at it. Ah, but it was a blessing, and I'll never forget the day I left my corporate job. Um, I was driving home in the afternoon, and it was before Crosstown is what it is now, right? And I'm driving down, and I take a corner onto 62, and as I'm getting towards going south into Bloomington, this force moves through my body. I could just feel it. It was like all the stress was gone, and I got a clear message: "You're never going back." And I've never gone back. But what's really cool for that is, I've had little moments with students. I had one student, he was a teenager, and when I first started teaching, I taught just the way I was taught, right? And I was always frustrated by how I was taught because it wasn't what I needed. And he looked at me about 3 lessons in, he said, "Can we do something else? This is boring." And I said I didn't argue. I said, "You're right. It is."
And so you changed up everything
I
and
started changing stuff.
How
I started
yeah.
I went when I went out to LA, I took lessons from a guy named Peter Butterfield, not Paul Butterfield, that's an old blues guy, but Peter, and he took lessons from a guy named Ted Green, who's a very well-known guitar theorist, and he opened my eyes up to the instrument in ways I'd never seen before. Now, I've been playing 10 years. I'd been on the road, but, I got back from that year, and my jazz professor from college called me up, said, "Phil, we're gonna do the President's Ball. I wanna put together a jazz combo. Can you play? I'll play bass. You can play guitar." I said, "Okay." So we do the gig, and, we're doing standards, right? So you read the lead sheet, which is just the melody and the chords. So old jazz standards like All of Me, that kind of stuff. And anyways, and then everyone goes around and solos. So what is a 1-minute song turns out to be an 8-minute jam, right? That's where jam bands come from. And we got done with the gig, and Rick came up to me and said, "Phil, what happened to you out in LA?" I'm like, "What?" Because you're playing this light years from where it was a year ago. Oh. And so I explained to him some of the stuff I'd learned. Now, this is all new for me, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm just stewing over this. I've only had about a year to deal with it. And I don't know if he realized he said it when he said it, but he said, "Huh, never thought of that." And I thought, I took 4.5 years of jazz lessons from you,
Yeah.
you know? Well,
Why?
it's a small town. You go out to LA. I mean, the guys out there can read Frank Zappa for breakfast. I
Right.
mean, it's studio. But so when that student said that to me, all those old lessons came flooding back to me on how frustrated I was. And so what I ended up doing over a period of years is developing a system of how to learn the instrument in such a way that you learn the guitar as a whole. I don't know if you've ever played guitar.
Oh, I music, no. I have 0 talents when it comes to anything.
Well, you're honest.
0. Well, so do you prefer teaching more than playing? Because it sounds like you're a pretty fabulous player as well.
I love to play. I did the metal thing that morphed into me getting saved and doing praise and worship. So that's my shtick. But I was in a college alumni big band, so it was a 17-piece big band,
Right.
which is it was a blast.
Yeah.
It was a blast. I love to play. And but I love to impart knowledge and skill to my students. And most people, when they learn how to play, they learn how to do some chords here, and then if they do more, they learn how to do some scales, right? And they learn chords and they learn scales, and they're completely separate.
Mm.
Well, if you don't learn them together as a whole, you don't understand what you're doing. Okay. And so my book series that's out on Amazon, it's called the Awesome Guitar Series. By the way, my website is awesomeguitarteacher.com.
Mm,
So if anybody wants to remember that, it's awesomeguitarteacher.com. But but that
That's awesome.
that series, exposes an idea that hasn't been out there. I'm not saying it's the only one that does it, but I have yet to find one that does what it does. It combines both understanding chords and scales together in a onesie twosie fashion. I teach the way I wish I would have been taught, which is
Yeah.
not being intimidated. I bought books, one from that Ted Green guy, Chord
Yeah.
Chemistry. I opened the book up, it's tons of chords, it's just intimidating. I put the book down, it's a coffee table book. You never look at that stuff because you just feel overwhelmed. And so when I teach, I don't want my students to be overwhelmed.
But can you pick up that book now,
Yeah.
today, and look at it and it's not overwhelming?
Oh, Chord Chemistry? That the book that I thought was?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can look at it now and go, yeah. In fact,
Right.
I'm using it to, write the next 2 books. I've got a 4-book series, I'm writing books 5 and 6. And I was going through that and analyzing it, and I actually found a couple mistakes in it. That book has
Really?
been out since the
The student
70s.
becomes the teacher?
Well, I tell you, I was like, "Wow." So,
Huh,
but
neat.
just 2. I only found 2. It's a very thick book. Um, but you have to do your research, right? So what I'm trying to do is bring knowledge in for guitar players in such a simplistic way that they see the logic behind it, so they can start taking that and learning from it on their own. It sounds kind of silly. Well, I know it's silly.
It brings more joy into it.
It does. My goal is to get my students not to have to take lessons anymore. That's actually my goal.
That's a good goal.
Well, it depends how old you are, you know.
Who's your favorite student?
My favorite student?
Mhm.
I don't know if I have a favorite student. I have kind of a favorite type of student, and then I've had
Hmm.
some really neat successes. My favorite student is somebody who's humble or somebody who's been playing a long time, and they sit down and I go through information with them, and the their jaw kind of drops. In fact, I just had a guy on Sunday I ran through all this stuff with, and he goes, he's been playing for 15 years. He goes, I never knew any of this. I'm like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is your first lesson. He's like, I know. But I would have to say one of the favorite experiences I had was a high school guy out of Apple Valley, and he was taking lessons from me when I was early on. And I was still developing all my materials, but he was getting everything from me. And Nick, he went to a jazz conference in, I think it was Wisconsin, and I think Herbie Hancock was there. I don't know if you know who Herbie Hancock is. Watermelon Man, um, big jazz guy, and Wynton Marsalis. And Nick is really shy,
Mhm.
but he's just a phenomenal guitar player. And he went, and it was a weekend. He came back, and it's time for the lesson. I said, "Well, Nick, how'd it go?" He kind of does this. He looks like this, and he goes, "I got voted best jazz soloist for guitar. No, for the whole camp." I'm like, "That's awesome." And it's yeah, when you have success like that,
Yes.
you know, and then you do have the people that just wanna do the campfire stuff, and I can happy to help them with that,
Yeah.
but
Could you teach me? Would I be teachable? Like, I have 10 left feet, and I have, like, I can't read music. I have tone deaf.
so I have T-shirts that say Oslo Studios on the front because that's the name of my studio, and on the back, it has a guitar, and you know what it says inside the guitar?
What?
"Go home and practice." Mm.
You don't even know how to start or where to practice. Yeah.
No,
I would probably be a bad student. No.
well, you gotta be motivated to do it too, right? But
I like listening to it. I'll stick with that. So if someone's listening today, how you've mentioned your website and your company, but how would they what would be the first steps?
first steps is,
Be motivated.
yeah, if you wanna take lessons, you go to my website. If you wanna get my books, you go to Amazon, type the Phil Olson Awesome Guitar Series. Uh, it's pretty cool. They've sold in 12 countries now. So, and, it's been a couple years and yeah.
Do you get reached out from people all over then?
I do. I have taught internationally, and then nationally, but I have I've been now that guys have been teaching so long, I've had guys and gals that are in the music business now that took lessons from me, so that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
And can you do it online? I mean, I know that's
Oh,
probably
yeah.
not optimal,
Yeah,
but
when COVID hit, I had to learn how to do it online. So I do online as well, but I like the in person, so
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, very cool.